Hello, welcome to our session, When Experiential Learning Meets Culturally Sustaining Pedagogy, Lessons Learned from an International Teaching Practicum. I'm Debbie Munson, an Associate Professor in Teacher Education at the University of St. Thomas.
And I'm Jianzi Candace Cho. I'm a professor at Teacher Education and also Education Leadership Department. And we have our third author, Dr. Xiehua Zhuang from National Sun Yat-sen University, Kaohsiung, Taiwan.
Today we're going to talk about our theoretical framework and background for this study. We're going to talk about our reflective and experiential learning in Taiwan, along with the research design, findings and recommendations, and the lessons learned from this study. Our theoretical framework is based first on culturally sustaining pedagogy. Culturally sustaining pedagogy seeks to perpetuate and foster, to sustain, linguistic, literate, and cultural pluralism as part of schooling for positive social transformation. This was the background that we focused everything on for our students. We're going to talk a bit about experiential learning from Kolb and reflection from Schoen, both reflection in action and reflection on action.
And based on Kolb's experiential learning theory, students need to start with some concrete experience. They need to immerse in a situation, then they can reflect on that situation based on their observation, and then they formulate some idea how they can work with this situation, and then come up with an action plan to actively experiment this in that situation.
For reflection, Schoen talks about both reflection in action and reflection on action. Our students did the reflection in action while they were teaching the lessons, asking questions like, what adjustment should I be making? What's working well? Why are students engaged or not engaged? And then the reflection on action after we were teaching the lessons, we talked about what can I change for next time? What do our learning buddies suggest for changes? How did our technology help? And how can we improve it? What pedagogy was successful for these students? And how will our next school be the same or different than the one that we're at currently? Our students were 9 undergraduates and 1 graduate student from Minnesota, 2 professors, and then we had Taiwan learning buddies or Taiwan partners, 10 to 20 of those, 2 full-time coordinators from Taiwan, a professor, 2 guest speakers, and a teacher liaison. And what we did is we visited 4 different Taiwanese schools. You can see these 4 schools here. We had Longmu Elementary, which was rural, low SES, all grades, and less than 10 students per grade. We had Gushan Elementary, which was 1st and 2nd grade, and was diverse with international students. Wanhei Junior High School was urban with a high SES, and then Huadong University Experimental School, that was suburban, and it's a lab school with a university connection. We also did a visit to one American school, the Taipei American School, which is K-12 with a high SES and diverse with international students. Before we left, we had online and in-person instruction as part of the course for our students. Then we used several things for technology. We used Flipgrid, Google Slides, Canvas, and Zoom to connect our students to one another and for the course. And then we had monthly planning with our Taiwanese partners on language and cultural factors that we needed to consider as we went to Taiwan. Once we were on site, we had cultural orientation from our Taiwanese partners. We did our school visits, and we also had cultural site visits. So you can see here kind of the flow chart of what we did for our preparations, using Flipgrid and Google Slides for our introduction to prepare ourselves to meet our partners and for our partners to meet us. We had one-on-one learning buddies when we got to Taiwan to help us understand the culture better, and particularly the school culture. We had pre-departure learning sessions. We had online learning and prep work, and then we had application of our culturally sustaining pedagogy. We planned our sessions with our learning buddies with a focus on culture. So our curriculum that we brought to Taiwan, we brought STEM lessons. They were approximately 10-minute hands-on lessons that our students created to share in a very open, experiential format with our Taiwanese partners. We created Minnesota lessons, and that was at the request of our Taiwanese partners. What is it like to be a Minnesotan? What does that mean? So we talked about being a student, the culture, sports and recreation, weather, and history in Minnesota. We created videos and slide decks to enhance learning and understanding for the Taiwanese students, and we practiced teaching before we left for Taiwan. And once we were in Taiwan, we worked with our learning buddies to edit the content, translate some key ideas for those lessons, and we practiced each task so our learning buddies understood the concepts we were trying to get across. Each day we had debriefing while we were in Taiwan. We asked questions like, what went well, what did you learn, and what might you change for next time? This was a great experience that both our students and our learning buddies were able to give input and to share ideas on how to improve the lessons based on what went well and what didn't go well, and what the new group of students might add to our experience. We did daily revision. We made changes to slides and to our pedagogy to meet the needs of the new students. And we used everything we had learned, both about students and culture and from our learning buddies, to make these experiences best fit our students. So we saw this really as a process, a cyclic process that we practiced our lessons before we went. Then we reflected on that practice, we revised those lessons, and when we got to Taiwan, we did the same thing. We practiced our lessons, we reflected on those, we revised those based on our learning buddies, and then we went to the schools and did the same thing. We taught those, we reflected on those, and we revised those. And for the culturally sustaining pedagogy piece that was our central theme, we kept asking, who are our partners? What can we learn from them? And how do we best engage with the students and teachers in Taiwan?
So we conduct a research based on these two research questions. What are the pre-service teachers' perception of the opportunities and challenges of an international teaching practicum? What implications for the design of an international teaching practicum can be drawn from PST's perceptions? And we collect data from the 10 participants from our university. The data include, they each has to write 3 journals. And so there's 10 participants, end up with 30 journals. And they also had to do a final presentation to talk about, share what they have learned from this experience, and we do a survey of their shared experiences. We use case study to collect this data, and we use NVivo to analyze the data we have collected. So we divided our themes under opportunities, challenges, and recommendations. Under the opportunity themes, there are 3 themes under this. The first one is improve teaching practices. PST gained confidence in working with international students through a variety of instructional strategies, including differentiation, formative assessment, and technology-enabled learning. The second theme under opportunities is new ideas. PST acquired new ideas to engage K-12 learners through creative problem solving, STEM activities, and cultural interactions. PST's visits to various international schools expanded both their career options and improved their teaching practice. And also the third theme is culturally sustaining pedagogy. Students appreciate the total immersion in these schools to develop skills in working with ELL learners and diverse learners. Under the theme of challenges, we have 3 items. The first one is communication. The student acknowledge that language barriers can inhibit their ability to fully engage the students, and this thing keeps coming up. Even though they have translators and learning bodies to assist them, but students still feel it's a big inhibitor for their communication with students. And constant changes in lesson planning and strategies. And then this is a deliberate design. We want them to reflect on their teaching each day and incorporate changes to the lesson next day. So they recognize it's necessary, but some of them find it very challenging to keep changing the lessons. Instructions. Some students express frustration at not meeting instructional goals or not providing clear guidance to learning during the initial teaching. And this changed throughout time after the third or fourth teaching opportunity. Most of them did feel less frustration in those days of teaching. So the recommendations based on the student feedback is first, adaptation. PSTs emphasize the importance of adapting their lessons through peer feedback and teaching practice. They find that this is very valuable to be able to work with international students. And international connection, many PST have forged a strong partnership with their peers in Taiwan as well as within the group, and they all have talked about a plan to continue that collaboration when they come back to Minnesota. And learning environment, the PST drew inspiration from learning environment at each school, learning the importance of incorporating local culture and community support in student learning. The fourth one is on reflective practice. All PSTs discuss the importance of the cycle practice, reflect, revise as an essential component for honing their teaching skills. So what have we learned from this lesson? There are 4 lessons. Care pedagogy. It's important to show care for students and praise their work to establish trusting relationships. Students find it very important to have that connection with the student they're teaching in the classroom. Clear instruction. Some PST pointed out the use of manipulatives such as flashcards, multimedia video are very helpful for them to deliver the instruction, good, especially when they don't know the local language. Learning from doing. A PST indicated, I have learned more in 2 weeks doing and seeing things than in a typical semester-long class, because they are immersed in it totally and they had to come up with a new idea on the spot. So it's a total immersion, learning from doing. And the last one, self-forgiveness. This is a quote from a student. Self-forgiveness and awareness to reflect, improve, and adapt is critical within my future classroom. They had to forgive themselves when they make mistakes, but because this will help them to become a better teacher in the future. So these are the references we have used for this research, and feel free to contact us at our email address, and we welcome your feedback. Thank you.